Well, to me, birth, like giving birth, it wasn't, I feel like the most painful thing was labor pains more than anything else. Labor pains were, it was just something else. I, have you ever been in pain that you can't even cry? That's like there's no tears coming up, but you in pain. It's like someone is taking your womb and just doing this, or like maybe a train just running on top of you. It was the most painful thing. Labor pains were the most painful pain, but giving birth, it was, I didn't even feel it, if that makes sense. I felt the pains more than the birth. The birth went on like this, but the pains were like crazy. So yeah. Yeah.
I don't really know pain because all my three kids are Caesars. The first one, I didn't know anything, wasn't expecting anything. Uh, on a Friday, if I still remember correctly, around 5, that's when I gave birth. I was waiting for natural birth, and then they told me that actually you're gonna go for Caesar. Then the whole process for me, it was so smooth. I didn't feel anything. They kept talking to me because they only worked with the bottom part of my body. They kept talking to me, asking me about my family and stuff, and then the next thing I knew, it was, voila, the baby is here. With the second one, the anticipation was there because I already knew what happened with the first one. So I think the pain is more psychological than physical. That's what happened with the second and the third.
So my birth took 16 hours of labor. I had tried to do it naturally, and well, I went to get induced because I think it was 39 weeks and something. So I went in and the induction process started on a Monday night, and I was supposed to be giving birth by like I think the early hours of the morning, and that didn't happen. But the induction was now in process, so I was in pain because they were helping the baby to come out. Oh, I got the gels inside, I got pills, like it was so much pain. I was cussing Lelo out. I was screaming at the top of my lungs. It was terrible. Imagine, so 16 hours, but like probably like 8 hours of pain in that 16 hours. Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible actually. And then I had a failed induction, and then around, so the whole day I was in that pain, and then around 6 the doctor made a call that I need to get a C-section, and I went in around 6:30, and I was dragged. Oh, felt so great. It felt so great because now like I was not in pain anymore. It felt so great. And then they just did what they do, they cover your face so that you don't see what they're doing down there. So they did everything, and in 15 minutes I heard and the baby was out. And yeah, that whole thing like took 20 minutes, and I was like, I just wish I didn't have to go through all that pain that I went through for nothing. Even though it was difficult, but in the end, having my baby healthy was all that mattered.
Yeah, so birth story for me. So my husband is he's quite tall. He's a very tall guy. With both my pregnancies, well, I like to say I'm vertically challenged. So with both my pregnancies, my doctor was like, yeah, you're gonna have really big babies. Like if you have options, you don't necessarily have to go the natural way. And with me, like convenience is what I go for. So if I don't have to experience pain, that's what I'd go for. So I chose to have C-sections for both my kids, and they were great. I had a great support team. My doctors were supportive. My family was supportive in helping taking care of the kids after birth, so I healed quickly, and I don't have any birth horror stories. The only one is my firstborn was born prematurely, so an entire month he spent in hospital in the neonatal facilities. So that was one of the hardest and challenging moments, having to go home and leave my newborn at hospital. But I visited him as much as I could every day to go and feed and just spend time with him. And it was like the most joyous thing when he eventually came home, which was great. Funny story, with the firstborn, we were not as prepared as we should have. I mean, I didn't have a hospital bag packed. I was like, I still have a month or two before my son is born. We were going for one of those, regular checkups in the 3rd trimester. And the doctor was like, yeah, you are giving birth today. You're going upstairs. And I was like, my C-section is pre-planned. I have 2 months still to go. They were like, no, bring your hospital bag in, as if I had it in the boot, because I was not that prepared. And so my husband had to leave me at the hospital and go shopping for like baby stuff. So he was freaking out. The nurses were kind enough to give him a list of things that I would need and the baby would need. And he told me that he went to Baby City and like gave the nearest person the list and was like, I don't know what any of these things were. And he was just in panic mode. He came back to the hospital. I ended up giving birth 2 days later, so they had to make sure that the baby's lungs were the right size, or were great enough for him to survive outside, as he was premature. So they injected me with like some what do you call it, steroids, so that the lungs, so they can breathe. So they gave me like 2 days. So I spent 2 days at the hospital before my C-section. But my husband, he took leave immediately, and then with both pregnancies, I mean, I feel like he has had the greatest paternal leave. So he took leave. So like you get maternity leave, he took paternity leave for my first pregnancy. He took it for 2 months, and the second one he took it for a month. So he's a very supportive partner, very hands-on, and would help with like bathing the babies, with feeding. I would breast pump, he'd feed so I can sleep, and that was amazing.
Very interesting, because my birth date, actual date, was a month before I actually delivered my son. And it was Good Friday, and my little brother had chicken pox. And I decided I'm gonna lotion my brother, calamine, thinking that I had already had chicken pox. The next day I woke up with chicken pox. So I had to go into an emergency cesarean because I had contracted chicken pox. So it was quite traumatic because I was not ready. And secondly, I was quite fearful of what the effects were of chickenpox to my son. But all in all, I had an emergency Caesar, and my son obviously had chickenpox too. So yeah, it was quite scary, but yeah.
Oh, honey. It was very painful. So from, I don't know which time, from 9 a.m. I started feeling the contractions on the day. And then they were like, I was in Cooks at the time at my dad's family's house. And they were like, no, you need to wait because you're going to wait anyways when you get to the hospital. So wait until the contractions get bigger and all of that. So I needed to wait. My contractions took up 17 hours straight. Full contractions happening, maybe I was a few centimeters. Those ones, like maybe in the last 3 hours, the 3 hours by contractions in Zeka. That was, I wanted to die. Like I was holding this guy that I don't even like's hand. And like, if something happens to me, can you promise me you're gonna take care of I felt like I was dying. Fine, so now, and the bed, the way it was positioned, it was like, and it didn't make sense to me how I was laying like that and how the baby was gonna come out. The baby was stuck, nothing was happening. And the doctors were like feeling defeated, they didn't know what to do. And intuitively, I got up from the bed. My child is like a few centimeters.
excruciating pain. And apparently, what I found out now from my experience is that with pregnancy, you have to wait for the contractions in order for you to push. So the contractions are what gives you the energy to push. If there's no contractions, you're literally not working on any energy, you're super tired. So yeah, you needed to wait for that pain and then you push. So I decided to get up. I got up from the bed and I stood up. Imagine standing up and the contractions were like killing you to death. And I stood up and I held the bed and I squatted. Do you know what the doctors did? Because they didn't know what to do. They took the sheets from the bed and they put them like on the floor. The squatter, and in one go, my child was crying and she was out. Even my baby daddy was like, how did you know to do that? And funny enough, when I checked on the internet, back in the day, I think during slavery, that's how they used to give birth. Like people would squat and that's how, yeah, well, it makes sense, like gravity. Anyway, yeah, if that answers your question.